I'll just check what questions have been asked. So these have answered, sir. How to counter a question when we cannot recollect adequate? Okay, sir. What? So remember the syllabus, sir. What are the various ways and best way to handle situations such as violent mobs and riots involving civilians? So I think this is more of an interview question. So you just read for mob violence and riots. There's a chapter in the book on mob violence and communalism and mob violence, and you can refer to that chapter. I have given detailed discussion. I've done detailed discussion in that. But to give you a short answer to your question, there was this recent case in Supreme Court called the Tehseen Poonawala case. And in that case, the Supreme Court has given detailed guidelines, preventive measures and corrective measures for preventing mob violence and riots. So it has said that government has to publicize that you cannot take law in your own hands. There will be action against the district magistrate and SP if they fail to take action. Those cases have to be charge sheeted and trial has to be done in a time-bound manner. So all these things have been mentioned in the Tehseen Poonawala judgment by the Supreme Court. So I'll encourage you to refer. There are preventive measures, how to prevent such riots. There are reactive measures or proactive. After the riot happens, what to do, and there are other disciplinary measures which can be taken if in case the officer fails to control that. So I'll encourage you to just see the Tehseen Poonawala judgment, or maybe you can find the reference in the book also. I have mentioned it there. So that is one question that is there.
Sir, shall we allow some of the participants to use the voice chat option?
Yes. I'm open to that. Alex.
Anybody want to ask questions to Raza sir?
Yes, sir. I would like
Please,
to,
Steve.
sir. Good afternoon, sir. My name is Steve. From Kerala primarily. First of all, I would like to thank you for this session that you had taken. It was essentially the need of the hour because it had given us a big picture on the internal security matters of our country. My question is essentially, I have three questions. The second will be the subdivision of the first, and the third will be purely on the mains perspective. The first question that I have, sir, is you were mentioning about the various issues of the left-wing extremisms that are faced by the country. And you had also mentioned that the state and essentially the administrative services, they are more into the developmental and the policy making issues. But my question is more specific in the sense that when we talk about the Indian police, they will be essentially into the ground realities of the matter. You were talking about killings of state police just to demoralize the state in general. So when it comes to the eradication of these left-wing extremisms, how do you think the police essentially react to these? Do they react in the terms of raids and encounters, or do they capture these extremists? And if they are capturing them, do they have the solution to this? Would the solution be for a rehabilitation? Like these are highly radicalized individuals, so do they have the option of a second chance in the society?
So is that your question, Steve?
Yes, sir. This is my question. The first is, do police, the Indian police, do they conduct raids and encounters just to eradicate them, to counter their demoral? I mean, do the police, to counter their killings, do we counter the same? Do we do the same thing to demoralize them? And if we capture them, do they have the option of a second chance in the society in terms of rehabilitation?
Okay, Steve, I get your question. I presume I could find two questions in that. Number one is what is the police response, and does police also do some counter operations and all? And number two, that once they are captured, thinking that they are highly radicalized, do they still have a second chance in the society? Is my interpretation correct?
Precisely, sir. Yes.
Okay, so addressing your first question is police does a lot of operations, a lot of general operations. It may not be that sometimes I can say about my own experience in those areas. We used to regularly have operations such as cordon and search operation, in which we used to go to the to a village in the night, in the dark of the night, and then surround the village by the morning. And by sunbreak, we would go to the houses and search if there is any Maoist hiding there. Sometimes there would be exchange of fire also in such situations. At times, some Maoists get killed. Sometimes even because of sometimes even as if a civilian is trapped in between, then he or she also can get killed. It's a very unfortunate thing, but these things can happen in real life situation. So police response is police tries to gather intelligence about them, their movement, who are the people, who are the supporters. If they are small, if they are just villagers, then probably they will maybe just keep watch on them. If there are hardcore Maoists, then they will go for the arrest. They will try to follow the movement. If they are in the jungles or in their forests, sometimes these encounters take place. I will not say that police catches them and kills them, because that will be patently illegal. But yes, if police is searching a village or going for a raid or sometimes going for an ambush, and if there is an exchange of fire, then a Maoist can get killed. As it is as likely as a policeman also sometimes get killed. So police response is multifarious in terms of operations such as cordon and search operations, ambushes, raids, long-term patrols. So they will keep on patrolling in the same forest for 2-3 days, sleep in the night in the jungles. Police. So these are the operations. Then they would arrest the people if they are caught in the jungle, or if they are caught somewhere else. They would arrest. They would file FIRs against them, do the investigation, do the charge sheeting, and then the trial would continue in the court. Police marshals the evidence against them, and we are not the police force is a uniform force, and it cannot use the same tactics that the Maoists use. We have to follow the rule of law. We must always follow the rule of law, and that is why the entire resource of the country is with us. The Maoists, they may not have the resource, and that is why they have to do such shortcuts and tricks. But we have the entire force of law behind us, and therefore there is no need for shortcuts in terms of killing just like that, killing encounters. But yes, deaths can happen place in an exchange of fire. So that is the police response. Police also works in terms of trying to, if a person is willing to surrender, police does encourage him to surrender and does try to rehabilitate them. In the mainstream, I have seen any number of people. I have myself seen any number of people getting rehabilitated. So they have to be now after rehabilitation. They also might feel threat from the Maoist side. So their safety security also is important. So sometimes they are given some alternate employment opportunities. Sometimes they are also drafted as volunteers, maybe home guards or something. So police helps them. And yes, of course, coming to the second question, certainly there is a second chance. They have got indoctrinated in a certain way by living in the jungles, by getting indoctrinated by those people. So if given time and space, if their problems are listened, and if they're given time, any number of people, Maoists, have come back to the mainstream.
Thank you very much, sir. And I had a third question as well regarding the mains. I just wanted to know, as administrators, are we supposed to memorize these fact and figures while writing mains answers?
You may not see in my presentation. I have hardly given any figure, because I know you will not be able to remember. But just remember that these are on a declining trend. Some figures are important. For example, maybe you can write that they are in over 70 districts in 10 states. But this is a very small figure. But figures and facts, as far as you can remember, but it's not necessary that you remember each and every figure. While in the exam, whatever figures you remember, you can give some important figures you can remember. Those figures are given in the revision portion of the chapter, towards the end of the chapter. So I do not expect, or it's not expected that you remember each and every figure. But yes, some important figures you may remember, which will make your answer better. But what is more important is understanding the context, understanding the entire context of the problem, so that in the exam you can tailor your answer to the needs of the question. That is what is more important, because the question may not be that, okay, what is the cause of Maoist extremism? You know, the cause is underdevelopment. You know that the cause is their own agenda of forming of protected arms struggle and that powerful the barrel of the gun, and they want to form a government. They want to launch a new democratic revolution, which is a good way of saying they want to capture state power. So you know, these are the, and in the context of underdevelopment, this they try to do this thing. So you know that, but then question will be how to link it with the fifth schedule. So you know this and you know the fifth schedule. Now you can link the 2 points. So what is more important is to have an analytical understanding of the entire thing. And then, of course, in the exam, whatever little bit figures you will remember, you can report those figures. But you cannot, nobody expects you to remember all the facts and figures.
Understood, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Any other questions?
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes.
Hello,
Yes,
sir. My name
Oscar.
is yes, sir. Oscar, sir. My question is how to deal the question like dilemma between the development and cultural protection or environmental protection, sir. If you tell your real life example, it will be better.
Pushkar, can you be slightly louder? I could not hear you fully.
Hello, sir.
Yes, Pushkar, can you be please a little bit loud?
Okay, sir. Sir, how to deal with the question like a dilemma between development and environmental protection or cultural protection of the tribals, especially northeastern tribal. Sir, can you give you the real life experience of your sir your service, what you faced there between development and environmental protection dilemma?
Okay. Okay, I have to think of a real life example, but both you have to understand that both are important. You cannot do development. You have to always think in terms of sustainable development. You have to understand that development and extremism, underdevelopment, extremism go hand in hand. One leads to the other. Both are two sides of the same coin. So if you are underdeveloped, extremism will grow, and in fact, this is what is the first chapter. The book speaks. It establishes the link between underdevelopment and extremism. Now, coming to your question on ecology or environment and development, you have to actually take both. You cannot neglect development. At the same time, you cannot neglect environment. So you have to think of ways in which development can be sustainable. You cannot. You have to think in terms of preserving the forest cover. You have to think in terms of improving the groundwater level. You have to think in terms of maintaining the air quality level. You have to think in terms of your project should be such that they should not create big environmental impact. Your project should be after an environmental impact assessment and also a social impact assessment. So this is why the EIA and SIA are being carried out before major developmental projects. So, yes.
Hello, sir. One more question, sir.
Just allow me 1 minute to complete this question, please. So, friends, so while developmental projects are being made, you have to understand what will be the environmental impact, what is the social impact, and that is why these. Is it that this project will help in, depletion of tree cover, or is it that this project will result in fragmentation of habitation of? Suppose you make a road in between of a jungle. So we should make sure that animals are able to go from this side to that side of the jungle. It should not be that road is so high that the habitat gets divided into 2 parts. So these are small things that we do keep in mind while we design developmental projects. We have to go for latest technology so that pollution is not there, forest cover is maintained, water is recharged. All these small things you have to. But please understand that both have to be done in a symbiotic manner.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. One more question, sir. How to deal with the specific question like glacial outburst? Because it needs, I think it need a technical answer, sir. And if I don't know the technical answer, how to write? What to write, sir? Like glacial outburst.
So, I think I have included this in my book, Glacial Lake Outflow GLOF. So, in fact, in the national, I'm just reading my book. That in the new features introduced in the National Disaster Management Policy 2009 Plan 2019, new sections added related to hazards of thunderstorm, lightning, squall, dust storm, cloudburst, hailstorm, glacial lake outflow, outburst flood, and so on. So I think it's given in the book, the glacial lake outflow. Best of my knowledge, it's allow me a minute, please. So there is a box in the book on this flash flood in Uttarakhand in February 2021. I can just show you the box. This box says flash flood. So in this box, I have spoken about glacial lake outflow. This has given how this whole thing happened. And once you know this thing, you will be able. And before that, it is in the section on landslide. So it is linked with landslide. What happens is in hilly areas, sometimes a landslide occurs, and then there are lakes in the it blocks a channel, a water channel. It blocks. There are many streams and rivulets in. So once that rivulet is blocked, water tends to form. It tends to form a lake. And then after, when water continuously flows and flows and flows, and once then when the blockage is cleared, or after due to pressure the blockage gets cleared, a huge amount of water goes in a very short span of time, and this is how a glacial lake outflow happens. And so I think I have covered this in the book. So by reading the book, I think you should be able to the main kind, whatever disasters come to your mind by and large. Unless the question is entirely from a different context, most of the disasters have been covered, including this GLOL in the book.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for all the questions, sir.
Rajashekar, you want to ask something?
Yes, sir.
Please ask.
Okay. Good morning, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. If you could be a little bit louder, please.
Yes, sir. Is it now clear, sir?
Yes.
My name is Rajashekharan from Tamil Nadu.
Yes, please.
My question is regarding the fake news circulation and the violence it creates. How to tackle them, sir?
Fake news.
Yeah, yes, sir. Recently in Tamil Nadu, there is a case related to a district in which a girl got suicide, and the arson is very dangerous to the state, and it poses a severe threat to the society. How to tackle the menace of this problem, sir?
So friends, there have been earlier questions also on fake news, and this has been dealt in the chapter on there has been this entire thing of fake news and social media, and media have been dealt in the chapter on I think this chapter on challenges from media and social media. This chapter, challenges from media and social media. In this chapter, I have at length spoken about the fake news issue, and I have also suggested what are the, and rather not only this one, but also in the chapter on communalism and mob violence, I have, because a lot of times mob violence is due to fake news only. So I have given some strategies there. Mainly these days, Facebook also and some other organizations, people should refrain from forwarding just without verifying. There are other fact checker websites also. Proper action should be taken in case a person is found to be disturbing public peace by spreading fake news. Then again, there is this now the government has asked WhatsApp and other social media intermediaries through the guidelines released last year to actually help government initiate or find the initiator of the news or of the image. Though I don't think this has been so far functional so far as WhatsApp is concerned, because WhatsApp says that it doesn't store the records. So government wants to have a mechanism for finding the originator of fake news or originator of a news that is there. In recent also what the government has done is, if you see the government's intermediary rules 2021, which came into power I think in May or June last year. So that says that a significant there are certain enhanced checking for there's a grievance redressal mechanism for Facebook and such companies. They have to have their grievance redressal officer placed in India. And there are other guidelines also for if a complaint is lodged by a person, immediately within 24 hours they have to address that. So if you just read the intermediate guidelines to 21 rules, and it's given in the book, I think it covers part of the answer. And part of the answer will be there in the chapter on mob violence, because how to deal with fake news, it's mentioned.
I got another question, sir. Shall I
Yes,
ask now?
Just a minute, Raj. Sir, how much time you have, sir? I mean,
I,
3, 4 participants are again asking
I,
questions.
I, as I promised, I will answer all the questions, even if it takes 1 hour more. So don't worry about that.
Raj, then please go on.
Nice, thanks.
Yes, please.
My second question is regarding the cybersecurity challenges faced by the government.
Pardon?
Recently, few months back, our NIC National Informatics Center website got hacked, and it takes some more time for to retrieve those data. Why? How do this happen? How to tackle this problem, sir?
What got hacked? If you could just repeat, what got hacked?
NIC National Informatics Center website. Few months back, it has been hacked, and so many government websites and servers are hacked. And how to tackle this, sir?
So again, as I said, it's a continuous process. Cybersecurity is an important component, and it's an important component of national security. Once your databases are breached, you don't know from there. You can enter into the servers and escalate privileges, and you can enter any government department. You can know what the government is doing, what are its plans. So cybersecurity is the most important. Now to prevent such things, you have to have a team of you have to strengthen your defenses. Maybe you have to also work on offensive capabilities. You have to make sure that your servers are protected. They are protected through intrusion detection systems and such things. You have your firewalls in place. If there is a suspicious activity from any place, a lot of requests are coming from a particular IP address. There should be checks to flag it and block it at an appropriate time. Yeah. Then again, the government is now, many times data breaches take place. So some data breach will take place, and the company doesn't reveal this to the government. So recently, the government has said that within 72 hours, I think, they have to report, because unless and until they report to the government will not know. Once the government knows, then it can prescribe corrective measures. It can see the extent of damage, what all is it. Because one database's damage may lead to many other damages elsewhere, which the government may not come to. So regarding strengthening of the websites, it's a continuous process. One has to always keep on searching for loopholes, searching for vulnerabilities. We have to make our cyber infrastructure resilient to such attacks. It's a continuous process. Hackers and attackers will keep on trying, and our personnel have to keep on making them, patching it, making the loopholes or vulnerabilities, patching them up. So it's not you can never say that now your website or now your system is perfectly safe. Nothing is perfectly safe in the world. It's just a matter of time. But then you can make it difficult for the hacker. So that is by following basic guidelines like following digital hygiene, not listening your. Normally, what happens is I may not even need to hack your this thing. I will just try to find a person in your office who will maybe give me the password, or maybe knows the password in your office, or some person who has just been fired from that office. If I ask him, then he may know the password. Sometimes you send friend requests to army officers and all Pakistan. ISI sends army so through the social networking sites and all. They send friend requests, and then they accept, and then they take privileged information from them, and then they use it to launch attacks. So it's not a one-dimensional thing. On multi-dimensional, you have to work to make a cyber thing strong. Number one, you have to make people aware of digital hygiene, not to leave their login open, not to share their passwords and pins and so on. Number two, to make the infrastructure resilient to attack by placing adequate number of firewalls and intrusion detection systems and DDoS detection systems and so on. Number three, by ensuring that you follow a set guidelines in your office while on government computers. You are not accepting friend requests via unknown persons, and you are not sharing your personal information with us. All these things form a part of the strategy to make sure that our cyber threats are not.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your information. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Anjali, you want to go next?
Yes, sir.
Please.
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, Anjali.
First of all, I want to thank you for this amazing session. It's an honor to be hearing from you. It's been a lovely day, And sir, thank you so much once again. My question to you would be, what was and is your driving force, and what motivated you to join the Indian Police Services?
So, Anjali, thanks for the question. Thanks for your appreciation. I am presently working in Kolkata Police as Joint Commissioner of Police. It's basically in district you call it as DIG, but in the commissionerate it's one rank above the SP, and in a commissionerate it's called the Joint Commissioner. So in Calcutta, I'm Joint Commissioner Organization, and my responsibilities include managing the entire finance of Kolkata Police, managing getting government funds, spending government funds, distributing and routing to various people, various you call it DDOs, drawing and dispersing officers. So giving them funds, making sure that the infrastructure projects in Calcutta Police are completed on time, working with PWD, working with Police Housing Corporation, allotment of quarters in Kolkata Police, making sure that they are repaired. So all the infrastructural work I have to look after the police. And so far as motivation is concerned, uh, uh, I appeared for my civil services from my graduation itself. I did my BTech from IIT Guwahati. So during my first year, without much of preparation, I appeared so I could clear the prelims. But and those times it was easy. So now, of course, it is not so easy. I understand that. Alex will agree with me. So somehow my parents said that okay, you prepare for this, and then I. So what happens is once you clear a prelims, and then you think that you are very near, and then you get caught in the cycle of prelims mains interview. So that was my. I'll not say that I had from my childhood wanted to become a civil servant, but yes, after my fourth year or during my fourth year, there are 2-3 options for a technocrat or for a technical person like me. One is a lot of my friends go to the US after taking GRE and all. Most of my friends are in the US in various companies, and some of them have taken for management and also. I was the only one in my batch who was interested in civil services, so I appeared for the prelims during and I qualified, and then it took me 2-3 more years because my optionals were slightly difficult. I had my maths as an optional and geography as an optional. Those days you had to have 2 optionals. But I can assure you, Anjali, that this journey is worth taking, and let me assure that there are no losers in this journey. You will never lose this knowledge that you gain here. Number one, you become a civil servant. That is fine. Number two, some people may not fail, but then you should not consider it as a failure because you will learn so many amazing number of things that it will help you later in life in understanding things better, in understanding how the world works, in appreciating why things are the way they are. And so I think there are no losers in this race, and everybody is a winner. But my best wishes to all of you to qualify the exam. And I'm assuring you that the life on this side is is good. It is worth it. And after 15 years in service, I can tell with satisfaction that I'm very happy in my service, in my job. So there is no reason for you to disagree. And you must put your best effort. You must put your best effort in this. And I'm sure if you follow the basics, if you keep on practicing, if you follow the current affairs, if you follow standard textbooks, if you write your answers well, each one of you will do well in your life and get selected in this exam.
Thanks a lot
Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks a lot for sharing the story of you. I mean, even after the initial session itself, I felt many will be motivated to join IPS actually. I mean, further everybody aspire to a civil servant, but I think, first preference might have shifted to IPS after interacting with you. This is a great way of explaining. Sri Lakshmi, you want to ask questions next?
Yes, sir.
Please.
Good afternoon, sir. So
Yes.
your session was so great. So I had this question about things happening really in the ground. So children, as they grow in this northeast, when they are seeing such things like their schools are getting burned, and they always see this public infrastructure getting disturbed. Then
Sri Lakshmi, could you just be a little bit louder? This audio is.
sorry, sir. Sir, can you hear now?
Yes, it is better now.
So children, when they are growing in this northeast region, the children, when they are going, they see such things happening, like their schools being destroyed and such public infrastructure destruction, lot of problems. And mentally, they will be very shattered in the childhood itself. So maybe they too become behaviorally the same way as they grow, and they may also turn into such extremist activities. So on ground, how can we go and make the people understand the importance of education there? And my another question is, there is a type of discrimination we do to them indirectly. Now, may not be in everywhere, but some places still that discrimination exists for Northeast people based on their race or something. We discriminate them. Some people not uneducated, or maybe people do it on purpose. So the psychological barrier arises. So then they feel this. So how can we correct ourselves in this case? And also, even after all this, they feel the same, because years long they are feeling the same. And even if after correcting they feel the same, how can we manage to make them understand such discrimination doesn't exist anymore? So how can we tackle these issues? So on.
Okay. Okay, Sri Lakshmi, I get there are two parts to your question. Number one, children exposed from a young age to different maybe violence or maybe problems in Northeast. So how to address that? And the second part I understand is that regarding the psychological barriers in terms of our perception of the people of Northeast, how to address that. So is this what you're asking?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So for the first part, as I have mentioned in my earlier slides, whenever you do operation in terms of cordon search or raids and ambushes, the security forces must always, and we also used to take care during our times that we should not, so far as practicable, we should not disturb the normal common people. It's a rule of war to not disturb the civilians. Wars are fought between, or fight should be between the armed forces and armed militants or whatever. But the villagers or the people should not be disturbed as far as practicable. Standing crops should not be disturbed by the forces. When we go in such areas, we do not walk through the fields, because if the fields are not there, then we will not get the food. So, so as far as practicable, winning hearts and minds of the people should be our agenda, should be the forces' agenda. And that is for this reason only I have mentioned winning hearts and minds on one of my slides. And we have also mentioned minimum civilian inconvenience, no civilian killing. Because if one civilian is killed, then again the Maoists or the insurgents, they take this issue, rake this issue up, and try to bring pressure upon the forces through media and human rights and so on. So it is not in our interest, it is not in the people's interest, it is not in the government's interest that civilians should be killed. We should take, but nevertheless, these things sometimes do happen. Despite our best precautions, sometimes civilians do get killed, as if they got killed in Mon because of mistaken identity. Now, the best way for government is to at least compensate those losses. We cannot compensate for lives, but sometimes government may think of compensating people who are killed in Maoist violence. That is one of them. The other issue is security forces should also always be mindful of this fact that any misdemeanor on their part, any torturing of the civilians on their part will be counterproductive for their own agenda. And therefore, they must keep this thing in mind. Number three is they can go for a civic action program, like in villages. They can go for medical camps. They can go for job melas, in which they will help the local people in bettering their skills, maybe arranging for some jobs, maybe even conducting recruitment drives in those areas, so that they don't view the forces as antagonistic to them. Let me share a small example that I just recalled now. When I was posted in an LW area of Jhargram, in that time, I think there was some incident. I do not recall what had happened, but the Maoists, what they had done, that they had sent about 100-200 small children on trekkers and all on mini vehicles, and they had sent at a public place, and then the children started protesting against the police. So that why this some operation we had done, some people were arrested probably. So they sent the children in front. So school children, they collected in the school and they sent the children in front through many vehicles, small vehicles. So when I reached the spot, I saw there are small children So what to do with them? So what I did is I had about some 400 or 500 rupees with me, and I bought some small soft drinks, maybe some chocolates and something, and I distributed to all the children. So they were very happy, and I seized all the vehicles. So all the vehicles, those people who had given vehicles were seized. Children were given toffees, so they were very happy, and they were saying police is very good and so on. And the police and the parents were called, and they were handed over the children. So the Maoists got a lesson that okay, our vehicles have been seized, so they faced financial penalty, or whoever had given those vehicles but the children were very happy. So you have to be at times very tactful in dealing with the situation. Depends on the situation itself. So, but if I had used force, or if I had maybe tried to push the children, or maybe go away, so they would have felt that we are not dealing with them properly. They would have this scar in their psychological mind. But you have to always be very gentle and soft with children, and you have to think that people are your asset. If they get antagonized, your own your fight gets more difficult. So that is one important thing is there. And the second thing is that you asked regarding the psychological barriers between. So yes, it does exist. Sometimes we do tend to speak loosely about people from other places, including from Northeast and many other places. This is there. A part of it is because of the geographical isolation of Northeast. There is a need for building more means of communication, more frequent. So now government is working on more air connectivity and road connectivity. So as more and more number of people of Northeast come to the mainland of India, and as more and more number, and as there are more opportunities in the Northeast, and people from the mainland go to the Northeast, this intermixing and sensitivity towards each other's culture and customs is what is needed. Perhaps we lack. Many of us lack this sensitivity, which is why this thing is happening. Perhaps it is also because of that there are so many tribes and in Northeast, and each one of them is also sensitive, or they are trying to protect their own culture. So if somebody from this side goes into Northeast, then they are also looked with suspicion. So this is also they have to also understand that it's a more admixture between the Northeast people and the national people at various levels, through films, through tourism, through various means, will help in integrating the area better. Of course, we have to acknowledge our fault that yes, there is this problem in our thinking that we tend to straitjacket that people of Northeast are like this. But every individual is different. Every community is different. Every community has its own pluses and minuses. So by merely being mindful of this fact, I think we will have addressed at our own level. And of course, when more and more people understand and realize this thing, things will be better. We need to supplement it with more communication, more films, more mixing of people, and so on.
Sir, the experience you narrated was great. Thank you, sir. Thank
you, Mr. Lakshmi, and thank you, sir, for sharing the personal story also, like how you dealt with children. It was great. Any extra questions? Anybody want to ask something?
There are many questions. I'll just read a few of them.
Correct. There are a lot of questions in the chat as well.
Yes. What are the various ways and handle violent mobs? I've said about this. Is it possible to join cyber cell without joining police organization? Oh yes. These days we are police, including Kolkata police. We do get in touch with people who have good knowledge of cybercrime, and recently we conducted a hackathon in Kolkata. The Kolkata police conducted a hackathon in which they were given certain problems, and we identified a few bright minds, and we are planning to utilize them for solving our problems, our cyber related problems. So yes, if you have an exceptional knowledge of cybercrime, police will be happy to take help from you. But then, of course, you have to have a good level of command of the subject. So we do encourage people from cyber. If anybody wants to help us, nothing better than that. There's one question on, sir, can one example of protected people's war be Taliban in Afghanistan? Taliban has a different ideology. It has a different context. Yes, they have been fighting wars for long, including Soviet and then with US and so on. Taliban is one of Afghanistan is one people. They are one people who are extremely proud of their culture and they will not like to be ruled by any other organization. So if they have to fight, they will fight for years together. However, so that is the nature of the people themselves. On the other hand, in India, the Maoist extremism is because of the Maoism or the Maoist phenomenon that was there in China. So people still try to glorify that ideology, whether it is applicable in today's world or not, irrespective of that, they glorify. And here, that is being utilized that is being propagated in those underdeveloped areas where people are susceptible to accepting such kind of. So even if people may not directly be wanting to fight war, but because of this ideology of Maoism, people are drawn. So that is the small difference that is there between. So in Taliban case or Afghanistan's case, it is not that it is following certain ideology of left wing, but it is because of their own. They don't want any outside force to be remaining there. Whereas in this case, the Maoists they want to copy the Maoist model or left wing extremism and enforce their form of governance in the Indian context. So that is what comes to my mind right now. Sir, why is the term Naxalite not used in LWE nowadays? Good question. Actually, this question, sometimes it is used, but it is erroneously, incorrectly used. Naxalite means those people who are from. Actually, the movement started from Naxalbari in India, in near Darjeeling district, in Darjeeling district. So it's a small village. So it started from there, but later it grew to Andhra Pradesh, it grew to Kerala. Now it is, and they have a certain doctrine which is called the left wing extremism. So and this party is called CPI Maoist. Earlier there were PLG. I think there was these two parties called MCC and PWG, People's War Group of Andhra Pradesh, and these two merged in 2004 to form the CPI Maoist. So Naxalite is the term is avoided because it has a particular connotation in that Naxalbari area. But it is for pan-India context we use the term of left-wing extremism.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Then there is this question on, sir, can the CAPF be deployed in the states without the consent of the states? CAPFs are deployed in the states for election purpose and all under the ECI. There, the consent of state is not required. But if the CAPF is to be deployed for LW and all, law and order being a state subject, the state sends a requisition to the central government, and central government then gives force. So without the state's consent, CAPF cannot be deployed. But in the case of Northeast, because of the AFSPA, AFSPA can be promulgated even if the state government doesn't want that. So that is specifically for the Northeast. In fact, there is an AFSPA for Jammu and Kashmir also. Earlier, there was an AFSPA for Punjab also. So the Punjab Act has been repealed after the end of terrorism there. But the Jammu and Kashmir AFSPA Act, I think it was promulgated. I think it was enacted in 1993, if I'm not wrong, or maybe 1990. And so Jammu and Kashmir ASPA Act, it has virtually the same provisions, but it is a separate act. And this ASPA, the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, is there in the Northeast. So in the Northeast, under the ASPA, the central government can deploy forces, or it can declare an area as disturbed area, even if the state government doesn't want. So there have been instances in the past in which the state government has opposed the ASPA, but the central government, because of security concerns, it has declared the area as a disturbed area and deployed forces. So under ASPA, yes. In general, no. Then there was this question on, sir, why was the paramilitary forces like BSF named CFPF? So paramilitary forces gives a connotation of being under military. So actually the military objected to them being called paramilitary, because people would think that they are part of the military, they are paramilitary, so they are part of the military. So whatever good or bad they did, people used to ascribe to the military. So actually the military objected to this use of term called paramilitary, and these central armed police forces like BSF, they are not under the military. They are not under the Ministry of Defense. They are under the Ministry of Home Affairs, and therefore these terms, I think in 2013 they were renamed to CAPF. In my book, I have mentioned this renaming of CAPF in the chapter on armed forces in the chapter on security forces, security agencies. Let me just see what I've written there. So this is I'm reading from my book. CAPF. These forces were earlier called the Central Paramilitary Forces (CPMFs). In March 2011, their nomenclature was changed to Central Armed Police Forces to remove the perception that these forces were part of India's military. Currently, there are 5 CAPFs: BSF, CISF, CRPF, ITUP, and SSB, working under the command of Ministry of Home Affairs. So I just read from this paragraph here. So it has. So that is why this is called Central Armed Police Forces. They are central, they are armed, they are police forces, but they are not under military, so they are not paramilitary. Then again, what are the Maoist organizations active in these areas? So Maoist organizations are the CPI Maoist and its front organizations, and all of these are banned. So the main party is CPI Maoist. What is CV and VPB in recruitment of youth? So if I'm talking about West Bengal, in West Bengal, CV is civic volunteers. So we recruit young people in those areas as to work as volunteers with the police. And VPB is village police volunteers. Similar might be the nomenclature in other states. I've written about my state. So VPB is village police volunteers and CV is civic volunteers. These both assist the police in performing its duty, but they are not directly police. Whether the Naga insurgent decreased after government initiative to have negotiation with some Naga insurgent group, current scenario how it is. I have mentioned that at present the government is in a ceasefire or in a suspension operation for the last 25 years with Naga groups like NSCN, IM and other groups, most of the other groups except for NSCN Khaplang. So NSCN Khaplang does try to launch attacks and all sometimes, but most of the groups including NSCN IM are in with talks and after the ambit was increased by including other insurgent groups and civil society organizations, the Naga groups did not like, and it was then that they started protesting against the then governor, Mr. R.N. Ravi, and then he was transferred. And then they said that they have, so they started raising allegations and so on. So they did not like it, but incidents have come down certainly because of there is a ceasefire for most of the Naga group, with most of the Naga groups, except for NSCN Khaplang faction. Sir, as you said, most of the Maoist organizations active in the tri-junction areas. Can you please explain reason behind that? I'm not saying that most of them are active in tri-junction, but many of these areas are also tri-junction areas in which the coordination is different. The reason is Maoists are in many places, but there are some places in which there are tri-junctions where the coordination is difficult amongst the 3 states. So when they are pursued in one state, they move to a different state, or they move to the other state. So that state also has to launch a simultaneous operation to flush them out. So it becomes difficult, more so because law and order is a state subject. So some of these examples are, say, for example, the Jharkhand, Odisha, and Chhattisgarh border, Chhattisgarh, Maharashtra, and Tamil Nadu, sorry, Andhra, Telangana border. So that is what my take is. How to tackle fake news, I have earlier answered. Maoists and terrorists are both harmful to society, but both are coordinate each other internally for weapons and financial. Is there any monitoring system? There is any monitoring system in internal security? Is there internal security? So monitoring, there are monitoring at the state and union level. There is a union home secretary who keeps discussing, who keeps coordinating with the various states. There also meetings are held at the union home minister and the chief minister for coordinating these efforts. Of course, with the DGPs, the meetings are held. So there are more monitoring mechanisms. I'll not go in the details. They are there in the book. The monitoring mechanisms for coordination and monitoring mechanisms. Sir, can we say that vulnerability of tribal communities and lack of development are some major causes? Yes, of course. Yes, of course. Vulnerability of tribal communities and lack of development are the chief causes for insurgents. Sir, second date, I could not get this question. Sri Laksha has asked. Sir, second date, I couldn't get. Second date, okay. I think you are asking in the context of Assam Accord. So the first date was 1st of January 1966. Before that, whoever had come to Assam, they were allowed to return there and they were given voting rights. But the second date is 24th of March 1971. After that date, if anybody entered Assam, he had to be deported and his name had to be struck off from the list. For that only, after that illegal migrant determination tribunal was formed 1983, and then the tribunal was not very effective. So the NRC thing came, Supreme Court ruled in 2013 that a national register of citizens has to be made. So it is in that context only that their deportation has to be done. So that is how the NRC thing came recently. So NRC, there is a box in the book, you can refer if you wish. Second date is 24th of March 1931. And in between, if somebody has come, so he will be allowed to stay in Assam, but he will be given voting rights after 10 years. 10 years from that date, not today. It was in the year 1985, Assam Accord was signed, correct? Anjali, thanks. Sir, in your opinion, will implementing Agnipath scheme affects internal security of a country, or it makes more powerful? Will it be a reason for facing more extremists in future? Now, it is a current issue, and there is government policy involved on this in this one. So I will not speak anything on this. It's the government's policy, and it's a current ongoing issue. So I'm prohibited by my service conduct rules not to speak. Sir, in your opinion, will implementing Agnipath scheme, again the same question, so I'll not speak on this. Even yesterday the Hindu covered NSCN. So now when you read the Hindu, or now when you read the Indian Express, so you know the background, and you know these things will again keep on repeating. The same things that I have spoken here will be there in the paper, and you can find the linkages. Sir, we get PDF. I have no issues. I have given the presentation to Alex, and he can make a PDF out of it and give it to aspirants if they want. How to tackle fake news? I have addressed a great lecture, solved my dilemma about how to deal with these parts. Thanks, Pushkar. Good insight on topics need to be covered and more content needed for mains. Thanks, sir. You're welcome, Ashwarya. A great lecture. Glad I didn't miss it. Pushkar, sir, please take one more lecture before exam on special disaster, cyclone, landslide. Here I'm facing problem. You can solve it, please. Okay, in that case, Alex, we can discuss. I'm open to that. Maybe another Sunday, you can. I can discuss it with Alex. So that's not an issue. Required, I can do that. Please arrange one more session with Sir clearing specific disaster management. Okay. We shall try how to maximize marks in DM, sir. Okay. What should be done when women misuse law? Woe before the women. It was in the year 1990. Okay. That was, I think, Jammu and Kashmir ASPA. Sir, clause 5 second date. Again, I said second. So clause 5 second date is 24th of March, 1971. So I have covered all the questions. Thanks. Should government think of forming a police group under CAPF, especially to tackle LWE? So, as I have told friend Ahmed, as I have told that Maoist is not a thing in which it can be solved only militarily. It is a thing which has to be solved on multiple fronts. You have to bring in development. You have to bring in police forces for conducting operations to force them to come to the negotiating table or to come to surrender. And so far the operations are concerned, CAPF does have better capabilities. It does have better weapons and ammunitions, better training and all. But one thing it does lack is it does not have the public linkage, and therefore it does not have as good intelligence as the local police might have. So I think the best approach would be to a coordinated approach of the CAPF and the state police rather than the CAPF, because no matter how much they're from, number one, they're from outside the state. They may not know the language, the culture, the topography, the area. And number two, they do not have direct day-to-day contact with the people, which the police station Thana has. So these are the two areas in which the police has the upper hand. So I think when they join hands, it will be a better approach rather than the CAPF doing it directly. Clause 6, there is no date, but in clause 6, recently there was a clause 6 says that there will be certain safeguards for people, indigenous people of Assam. So clause 6, there was a dispute as to from when the date will start. So recently there was this committee by BK Sharma committee, and it has recommended that the clause 6 date should be 1951. So he has recommended that it as 1951. So anybody who was born in Assam before 1951, or he was a resident of Assam before, and he will get the benefits. But people who have migrated from other places into Assam from 51 to 66 and 271, they will not be getting the benefits under clause 6. That is what this says. So I hope I have addressed all the questions that have been asked in the chat box, as well as if anybody One Prasanna wants to ask one question. Yes, Prasanna, please.
Hello, sir. I'm Pushkar. Can I ask? Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, as I am from sir JNU, and you talk about urban Naxals. In my college, many type of debate going on about urban Naxal. It is, I think, sir, controversial issue. Can I write it on paper during examination? Do you think it's sir? And
I beg your pardon. If you could repeat your question, please.
1 second, sir. Sir, I am a JNU student, sir, and urban Naxal topic is always on debate in my college, sir. As you know it, sir. Sir, I think this is controversial topic. Can I write it on paper during examination? And
you can write ideologues, Maoist ideologues. You can write. There is, if you want to not write the term urban Naxal, and that's okay. You may if you feel it is not proper, you may choose not to write that. In that case, you can write Maoist ideologues. But the point that I want to make here is that merely supporting an ideology or merely speaking something does not make you an urban Naxal or doesn't make you a terrorist. You have to understand that even the Supreme Court has ruled that mere professing some ideology does not make you a criminal in the eyes of law. Rather, your professing plus some action. Suppose you are providing funding to some organization. Suppose you are arranging legal support to them. Suppose you are helping them in recruitment of Maoists. Then it is that your thing. Otherwise, merely supporting or discussing an ideology is not a criminal offense. We have the freedom of expression in India. But if that freedom of expression, my freedom of expression gives rise to some kind of a public order problem, then it becomes an issue. If I start on the pretext of speaking, if I try to fight the case, if I try to recruit or maybe arrange funds for Maoists, if I become the conduit for arranging funds or supplying funds, then it becomes a problem. If I try to give shelter to a wanted Maoist, then it becomes a problem. So merely supporting an ideology is not a criminal offense at all. It has to be followed up with some action for it to become a criminal offense.
And sir, what is the remedy to tackle this, sir? Urban Naxal, if they ask specifically that how to tackle it?
You can be pretty sure UPSC doesn't ask controversial topics. It doesn't ask. But but yes, in the past they have asked. 2 years back they did ask about overground workers. You can call them Maoist overground workers. You can call, and for overground workers, I think the strategy can be that that if they are only supporters, they are not into some illicit or some terrorist activities, then of course you can keep a watch on that. Maybe you can prosecute them. You can call their parents, students' parent, or maybe the guardians, and tell them your child is doing so and so, please leave. But if they are involved in some kind of a secret activity or some kind of illegal activity, then of course the law follows its own course. There are various degrees of law. Some laws are very strong. For example, the UAPA. Some laws are slightly more not so strong. For example, various sections of IPC. There are again strong sections in IPC. There are preventive laws in which you can preventively arrest a person for and keep him behind bars for a few days. There are other things like preventive arrest can be made under 107 of CRPC. So depending on the gravity of the offense, there are an array, or there are a range of legal options that the government or the police has, depending on the gravity. Now, if suppose that somebody has done some murder, actually he will have a stronger kind of case to face. But if somebody has just say maybe participated in a Maoist called a meeting and the person went and out of fear he sat there, so what is his fault? Maybe we can watch. Okay, this actually it is not his fault. But if he has helped in organizing the meeting, then perhaps we can keep a watch on that person, what he is doing, his activity, because later also he may do something wrong. So it depends on the actual thing that the person is doing.
Got all the answers, sir. Thank you for this wonderful answer. Thank you.
Sir, after 51 date regarding clause 6, what you said, it was not clear. So I said that in the Assam Accord, there are two clauses, clause 5 and clause 6. Clause 5 gives 2 dates. Clause 6 tells that the indigenous persons of Assam will have certain facilities in terms of social, political, cultural matters, social, economic, cultural matters. So there was a debate as to who are the indigenous people. Those people, the person who came to Assam in 1960, is he indigenous or not? Because we have said that before 66, they will be treated as residents of Assam. So there was this committee under Mr. B.K. Sharma said, and he recommended that indigenous will not be the person who has come in 60. It will be only the person who has been there in Assam from 1951. So this committee has recommended this 51 as the cutoff date. And if the government agrees, then those people who have been residents of Assam before 51, they will get certain privileges in terms of job, in terms of other benefits and all. And of course, this has created tensions in the Assamese society. It is argued that it has created tensions in the Assamese society, but that is the current status. Sir, why northeastern states are facing so much of hardship? So I have told the reasons: underdevelopment, extremism, lack of development, lack of a lot of people are unemployed, but there are unemployed in other areas also. But there are different kinds of tribes. Many of these tribes have their own armed wings, have opened, and they claim to represent the cause of these tribes, and they indulge in extortion, in violence, and so on. So the whole lecture was regarding this. So you are trying to make me repeat the whole lecture.
Sir, I think we get more questions like this if we keep on doing that. But the best thing you have done is that you have already written a book which explains everything, right? So if students just go and read this, they get answers to all their questions. So I think we have already we have extended to 3 hours. We initially planned on 1.5 hours, but we were very patient and answered all the questions, from the text chat option and the voice chat option. But if we extend, we get again more and more questions. But I think we can kind of wind up now.
So I'll request Alex that I think you can edit the portion to 1 or maybe 1.5 hours, and put that portion, the question answer maybe removed from that content once you put on the net.
Yeah, sure, we can do that.
So thanks, my dear friends, and my best wishes to you. I'm sure all of you will put your best effort. You are all young. This is the age to put your best, and of course, once you get selected, also you have to work hard. But you have to put your best foot forward now. It's a wonderful journey. Each one of you has the potential. I'm telling you, I have seen people who are much smarter than I am, but who could not get through, and I have seen people who are maybe less intelligent or maybe less capable than me, but they have gone through. So this exam is a great leveler. Every single person of you has a chance. Do not think कि वो बहुत तेज है, वो ये ऐसा कुछ नहीं, nothing like that. Just put your best foot forward, and I'm sure you will do well in the exam. So thanks to Oxford University Press for organizing this lecture, and thanks to ClearIAS for giving me this opportunity, and so many students who have participated in this lecture, and thanks for your patience to hear me out for almost 3 hours.
Sir, I would like to add a few more words before ending. It's a vote of thanks actually. I would like to thank you for 3 things from the end of my students and ClearIAS for 3 things. First thing, for the services you do as a police officer to the nation. When we went through this session, it became more and more obvious what are the hardships police officers like you do for the nation, to protect nation when we are all sitting at the comfort of our home. That is the first thing, and I would like to thank you for that. Second thing is for taking time to contribute to the UPSC community in the form of a book like the Internal Security and Disaster Management. And I know how, as an author myself, I know how much time and effort it takes to write a book like this. And I know how busy you are, and in spite of your busy schedule, you have found time to write a book like this. Extremely thankful for you, and on behalf of the entire UPSC community. If we get a book like this, our effort will be, aspirants, the effort will be much less. So extremely thankful for that. The third thanks is actually for coming up on a short notice and spending 3 hours with the community to explain everything. Whatever silly questions we asked, students asked, you were very patient and you are very free. You called student. You didn't call them students also. You called them friends, and that is an entirely beautiful experience. And thank from the bottom of the heart on behalf of ClearIAS, and also thank Oxford University also for jointly organizing this session. And thanks a lot for having such a wonderful session, sir.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, friends, once again. Thank you so much.